Thank you for joining me today. My name is Donald Kerr. I'm the Director of Student Lending and College Services for AAA Northeast. Been here for about 12 years helping our families navigate the college process, whether it's from the admission side to applying for financial aid to even after graduation and managing the student loan debt. We're here to assist and help our families along that college journey. But October 1st is right around the corner on the calendar, believe it or not. Fall is here. And that's a very important date for anybody who has a senior in high school right now who could be heading off to college in the near future. You need to complete what is called the FAFSA form. So hopefully along your journeys right now, you're doing the admissions process, which is one type of application saying, hey, I want to come to your college next year. Please accept me into your next starting class. In addition to that, you're going to have to do a second application that says, hey, I am going to need some help paying that bill at your college when I do get admitted. So it's a very important timeline, something everybody needs to be aware of, and I think everybody should fill out. But it is one of those forms that has a kind of a bad reputation. A lot of people can sometimes hear horror stories from family or friends who have gone through the process. In my opinion, it's a lot easier than it kind of has that bad reputation, but I don't think the form is that hard. Recently, a FAFSA Simplification Act has been passed, and that is taking the form itself down from 108 questions down to about 36 questions. And certainly the 3 tips I'm going to give you today should make it a lot easier for you to fill out the FAFSA form. So I've been helping families through this process for probably about 25 years now. But my biggest qualification that I got to be the most proud of is my first of 3 kids recently graduated from college. So I'm doing this from the parental perspective as well. I know what it's like to go through it as a parent and navigating your kid through that college process. So I really hope by the end of today you guys get a lot of useful tips on how to fill out the financial aid form known as the FAFSA. But before I dive into that, what my 3 steps are, I want to talk very briefly about what financial aid is. A lot of myths sometimes about financial aid. I want to make sure you understand what I'm talking about when I say you should go out and fill out this FAFSA form. So when you're applying for college and during the admissions process, and then you're going to do a second application, the FAFSA form for financial aid. There are 2 main types of aid you can get. You can receive from your college, you can receive merit aid. That's going to be addressed during the admissions process. So merit aid is what it sounds like. It is financial assistance based on the merits of the student who's applying to go to that college. Athletics, academics, demographics. For whatever reason, the college wants you to attend their university, they can give you money during the admissions process. When you get that letter in the mail, you get that first acceptance letter and you're all excited, read on there, you may see some merit aid on there as well. Note that that will be available to you regardless of the results of your financial aid application known as the FAFSA form. So once you fill out the FAFSA form, you are asking for additional financial assistance. Now, everybody thinks that, this is all free money, which it certainly does consist of scholarships and grants sometime, but it also does consist of low interest rate loans from the federal government and work-study programs around the college campus. So financial aid is not just the good free money, but it's also financial aid loans and financial aid work-study jobs around the college campus. All great to use and all resources that you can use, but just know that there is a slight difference between some of the free money and some money that needs to be repaid and some money that needs to be earned during the college years. So that's really what financial aid is. And where does it come from? It comes from a couple of different sources. It comes from your federal government, comes from your state government, and most importantly, it comes from the college or university as well. So that's a big source of where financial aid can come from. Now, they all have slightly different deadlines, they all have slightly different budgets, and they're all handing out slightly different amounts of financial aid. Probably one of the biggest variables is at that college level. So where you maybe have gotten into, say, 8 or 10 colleges, those 8 to 10 colleges are all going to have wildly different financial aid budgets. Some are going to be more generous and can offer more financial aid, while others may have tighter budgets and may not be able to offer as much financial aid. So one of the big variables are the individual colleges. So it's important to note that after you go through this process of filling out the FAFSA form, every individual college will send you what they call a financial aid award letter. This is going to show you what types of scholarships and grants you qualify from the federal government, financial aid loans you may qualify from the federal government, anything from the state if you qualify for that, and then from the college themselves. That's a very key time as a family. So this financial aid offer, when you receive it, it is going to be the first time you truly understand, hey, the college costs $65,000 a year, here's what they're offering me in financial aid. You now know for the first time kind of what your out-of-pocket expenses are going to be. So I'll use my example of my son. As you're going through this financial aid process and the college admissions process at the same time, one of my number one and favorite tips is absolutely do not rule out a college based on how much it costs right now. Be prepared to have that conversation and say, hey, we can't afford this college. But once you apply for financial aid and financial aid is factored in, you'll be surprised on what your out-of-pocket expenses are. So my son is an example. He had 3 schools, private schools, on his list, and they were starting anywhere from $55,000 to $65,000 a year. He also had 3 state colleges on his list, and these were going from $30,000 a year to $40,000 a year. So once we applied for financial aid and we received these financial aid offers, the difference between all of these schools was no greater than $2,000. So I looked at him and said, hey, you got good financial aid package, choose the school that was right for you. Thankfully, he chose the state school, being the one who's helping to pay the bill. I was very appreciative of that, but you really don't want to rule it out at this stage. You're going to go through this financial aid process, and then you're going to see, all right, this is what we can't afford, this is what the right fit for the college is. And also, never make it about the money. Don't make it all about us giving you the best financial aid package. You've got to consider the right fits for your student as well. To talk a little bit about October 1st, which is coming up, I'm going to get into one more subject before I talk about my 3 easy steps to complete the FAFSA form, and that is deadline dates. So October 1st is when the form becomes available. Now, you don't have to run out. Everybody does not need to run out and complete that form on October 2nd. You will have some deadline dates, and as long as you have this form filled out prior to that deadline date, you will put yourself in the best position possible to maximize whatever financial aid you may qualify for. So we talked about the 3 sources where it comes from, right? Financial aid comes from the federal government, the state government, and the college themselves. So the federal government deadline you don't really have to worry about. It's really actually not until the end of the academic year. So that's not really a deadline date, but sometimes states may have deadline dates. So you can go to studentaid.gov and you can research state deadline dates for completing the FAFSA form. Research that deadline date and just jot it down. Most importantly, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to visit the college website for every college you're thinking of applying for. You want to go to their financial aid section and you want to look for what they call their priority deadline date. they have a deadline date that they want you to fill in that FAFSA form. So if you have 5 colleges, research those 5 colleges and see who has what their deadline dates are. Again, write them down or note them somewhere. Then look at all your deadline dates and always abide by your earliest deadline date. So one of your schools has a deadline date of February 1st, the rest are all later. Make sure you have it filled out by February 1st. And then you will be in the best position possible. So people who want to get it done and get it out of the way, it absolutely never hurts to get it done early. So if you want to check it off that checklist of all the things you have to do with a kid heading off to college, absolutely go out and get it done right away. You want to be prepared for it. So if you're not prepared for it, know you might have a little bit of time once you research those deadline dates to get ready. But my 3 easy steps, I think you're going to find you can very quickly get prepared to fill out the FAFSA form. So the first step of my 3 easy steps is to get yourself a username and password. And yes, you need yet another username and password. I hate them. I think everybody hates the usernames and passwords, but they're such a part of our digital life these days. It should be a process we're all pretty familiar with, and we understand getting them helps protect our security and our privacy as well. So you want to go to studentaid.gov, and I'm going to reference that website quite a lot. Go to studentaid.gov, and on the login section, it's going to say create an ID. Every student needs to do that, and at least one parent of that child needs to also go out there and create a username and ID. It's known as the federal student aid, and that's very important that the student and one parent does that. It's a very easy process to set up. It should only take you 5 to 10 minutes per person to set it up. And you will, the federal government said this is the federal government's website, and financial aid comes from the federal government. They do verify your identity against the Social Security Administration. They're going to do background checks on you to make sure you are who you say you are. So you will get a notification that, from the Social Security Administration that you have been cleared for your federal student aid ID. Don't panic, it is part of the FAFSA process. If you get one that happens to say there was something mismatched on your background check, you want to address that issue right away. They will give you phone numbers and contact information for you to reach out in this unlikely event. But it does happen from time to time. And note, if you get that, you want to address that issue right away. So the username and password, what it's going to do, it's going to kind of act as a unique identifier for you as an individual, and it is also going to other than acting as a unique identifier, it's going to allow you to electronically sign your FAFSA form. So it's very, very important that you get this username and password. So the second step in being very prepared to fill out the FAFSA form is going to be gathering the documents. So you want to go out and gather whatever documents you need. If you have a senior in high school right now, you're going to be filling out the FAFSA form, and you're going to be using it for to complete the 2023-2024 FAFSA application. So one of the most important documents you're going to need to gather is your 2021 federal tax return. And this is for anybody who's filed taxes on that FAFSA form. And I know it seems odd to go all the way back to 2021. In financial aid terms, we call this using your prior year tax return. The other thing you're going to need to gather is you're going to want to gather 2021 W-2 statements. Do not rely on finding W-2 information in your tax return in itself. You want to make sure you have the actual W-2 statement in your hands. It's going to be very, very useful in filling out the FAFSA form. Then lastly, you're going to want to gather information on your assets. So, and I'm going to talk about assets as one of my tips after I get through all three of my steps here. So, the assets you're going to want to count are non-retirement assets. Now, you guys are not going to need to go out and run around and get statements and account numbers and everything associated with that. But when you're talking about assets and filling them in, you need to know what the balances are of those assets as of the day you complete or fill out the FAFSA form. Examples of the assets you're going to need to gather are your checking and savings accounts. What are the balances? Non-retirement accounts, so stocks or bonds that are in non-retirement accounts. You will need to gather the balances on those. 529 college savings plans. Those are other accounts that you're going to need to know what the balances are as of the day you're filling out the FAFSA form. So those are the first two steps: going out and getting your username and password at studentaid.gov. Second easy step is gathering your documents: your federal tax return from 2021, your W-2 statements from 2021, and then information on your non-retirement assets. What are the balances? Then lastly, my last easy step for you to complete the FAFSA form is when you go to studentaid.gov to complete the FAFSA form, you are going to want to use what's called the IRS data retrieval tool. This is a fabulous tool that was put in a couple of years ago. So I've been doing the FAFSA form for a long time, and when I first started doing it, I would have to have your tax returns in front of me, and we would sit there and go through that form line by line and transcribe all the information from one tax return into the FAFSA form. So what the IRS data retrieval tool is going to do for you is it is going to import all your tax data directly from the IRS that's on your 1040, and it's going to auto-populate into the FAFSA form in the exact field it needs to be in for you. So in other words, it's going to do all your work for you. That's one of the things that makes the FAFSA form very, very easy. You will still have some information you need to list in the form about your assets. And I'm going to go into that in a little more detail in a second. But that's step one of the easy 3 steps: getting your username and password. When you go to studentaid.gov and you log in, it's going to pre-fill the first couple of pages of the FAFSA form for you. So getting the username and ID already auto-fills a couple of pages on the FAFSA form for you. And then when you get in to do the FAFSA form and it comes to that section about your financial information, again, you're going to use your username and password. You're going to access the IRS database, and you're going to import all your tax data. So again, that's another big chunk of the FAFSA form that's going to be auto-filled for you, which is fantastic. So that's how the 3 easy steps can help you. Kind of that middle step on gathering the documents, partly that is there just in case. Sometimes this IRS data retrieval tool doesn't work. You can enter everything manually if for whatever reason it does not work. So don't panic. One of the tips for doing the IRS retrieval tool is making sure the information matches correctly. So if your accountant fills out your form and they said, they typed in that you live on Main Street and you actually live on Main Road, you want to double check the information you're entering matches what's on the actual tax return. So if the accountant made a mistake, you need to match that mistake. So that's one tip that can help get you over the hump if for some reason the IRS data retrieval tool doesn't work. But when it does, it's a beautiful tool, and it makes the process so easy for filling out the FAFSA form. So those are the 3 real easy steps on how to fill out the FAFSA form.